Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain. Welcome to this special presentation, Plug in and Optimize, Smarter Picking, Packing, and Shipping, a customer case study with Medusa Distribution, presented by Lucas Systems. A quick reminder, there will be an audience question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Audience members are encouraged to submit their questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. So, in today's high-speed fulfillment environment, success hinges on flexibility, accuracy, and efficiency. Today, we're going to join Lucas Systems and his customer Medusa Distribution to learn how advanced technologies are reshaping the way that warehouses pick, pack, and ship. We'll hear firsthand how Medusa boosted productivity and customer satisfaction through the use of 3D cartonization and real-time optimization. With that, I want to introduce our speakers for today. John Vecchio is Vice President North American Sales at Lucas Systems. John is an experienced executive with a history of success in sales, client services, operations, and finance. His areas of expertise include software and product development, UX strategy, product innovation, robotics, SaaS applications, wearables, API authoring, and design research. Andrew Hayner is Chief Operating Officer with Medusa Distribution. He oversees logistics, process improvement, and mergers. Andrew is a logistics expert, industrial engineer, and business consultant with more than 15 years of experience in helping small and medium-sized businesses capitalize upon growth opportunities and outgrow their competition. And Thomas David Yee is the founder of Perseus, which uses cutting-edge AI and optimization to help small and mid-sized logistics businesses reduce waste and improve efficiency across parcel, pallet, and truckload packing. Prior to launching Perseus in 2023, Tomas was a software engineer at Amazon, where he developed truck routing algorithms that saved the company over $70 million annually. So with that, I want to turn the presentation over to John Vecchio. John, take it away.
All right, thanks, Bob. All right, so we have a handful of objectives here today, 4 of them. So we're going to reveal how Lucas and Perseus increase productivity while also lowering labor costs for Medusa. We're going to discover how Perseus maximizes packing efficiency with their real-time cartonization solution, and that solution is unique to them. We have not seen something like this in the market before. We're also going to talk about how Lucas's intelligent batching reduces travel using our highly configurable dynamic work optimization engine. And then finally, we're going to explore how digital map your warehouse combined with Lucas's pick path optimization can increase your fulfillment speeds, like Medusa found. So one of the concepts that we want to remain grounded in, we talk about this with all of our customers, all of our prospects, is that your distribution operations of the future are never going to look like what they look like today. Everything is changing constantly. How could we anticipate a pandemic happening that had so much disruption to our global supply chain operations? How can we anticipate the tariffs and trade restrictions that are happening today? We can't anticipate the next thing, the next problem, the next challenge, the next business challenge your business may fix or find that is unique to them. So what we can anticipate is that distribution operations need a flexible, adaptable solution that can shift and scale as their business changes. The reality is, everybody wants to be more productive, more accurate, have better retention of their warehouse workers, easier onboarding for new employees. And if you're not looking to get better, your competition absolutely is trying to get better. So when you look at the landscape of options here, you can see on the slide, there's a reason why it's kind of, things are to the side or in different colors. It's confusing. There's numerous options around hardware, robotic solutions, as well as warehouse management systems and warehouse execution systems like Lucas Systems. With all of these available, it's really easy to have analysis paralysis, and the real conversations that happen internally are, can the partners that you use actually deliver on what they are promising? Can they make you more productive? Can they make you more accurate? Can they help you in your ability to attract and retain those workers? Is the ROI that you're discussing with them actually going to come to fruition? So, with that, we have a large part of the answer here, and that is the dynamic warehouse. Specific to Lucas, this is a visionary solution. It leverages AI-driven software. It gives you real-time, intelligent decision making, and as a soft solution, it's going to adapt to your business needs over time. Today, we're going to talk about how Lucas and this dynamic warehouse, as well as Perseus, another partner of ours, how we solved some very unique challenges that Medusa faced when you were all um, uh, when we went to their warehouse for the first time. So when we did that, we knew that voice picking just naturally was going to give them a little bit of a lift and make them more efficient, help them be hands-free, eyes-free. When we walked the warehouse with them, Andrew already had some solutions in mind because he was already talking to Thomas and Perseus. But we collectively, together, as kind of a combination of different partners and teams, thought, okay, if we can take the packing and move it to the picking, leverage Perseus's technology, and then layer in Lucas's travel path optimization, as well as our smart batching and intelligent batching, we could create better assignments for their carts, help reduce errors, and make them really, really productive. So with that, I'm going to hand that over to Andrew.
Thanks, John. So as Bob explained, my name's Andrew Hayner. I'm the COO of Medusa Distribution. We are a B2B wholesaler of smoke and vape shop products. We do all of our business online. Our order profile, I think it's important to explain, our order profiles are not the typical e-commerce profiles where it's maybe single line, single unit, or single line, multi-unit. Our average order size is 38 lines per order. That's as of yesterday. We're doing 3+ units per line, and we're doing 125 units on an order. So if you imagine our product, it's basically like a vitamin size boxes, iPhone size box type stuff. So a lot of small pieces, and so currently, before we optimized, we launched our WMS in 2019. We were just picking to totes and breaking out the orders at pack stations. A lot of tribal knowledge on how to pack an order, like items with like things. Not very scalable. A lot of training, a lot of overhead on training, a lot of errors in the picking process, a lot of eye fatigue that we kind of found out after the fact, after we launched Lucas. And there's a lot of rules now with what we pack, right? We pack kind of controlled substances, sort of. They're not allowed to be shipped through common carrier, which lends itself to splitting orders into multi-boxes. Those things that could be shipped with a common carrier, we were able to, and it lends itself to just high shipping and labor costs. So we needed a solution. The existing WMS we had is great. It's still great. We just don't have, it's not able to handle the complexity of what the order profiles that we were trying to do. We wanted to be faster as well. We were fast, but we knew we could be faster. And we wanted something that scaled, right? So if we want to spin up another warehouse across the country or in another area, we don't need to kind of impart all that tribal knowledge on new employees. And we knew there was an opportunity to save all on top of this on shipping, right? We knew that we can gamify some of the shipping process that we have, and we could do that. So next slide. So enter this relationship between Lucas and Perseus, right? So as John kind of, there's Thomas, as John kind of alluded to, I had an idea of what we needed to do, being in the industry and being in process improvement my whole life, right? So we started with a false start with our WMS in 2020, kind of abandoned this. In comes Thomas and Perseus, and at that point we develop a solution that helps us, but it's after the fact, right? So he's helping, Perseus helped us with how do we split an order that's already picked in a tote into different boxes. But I knew that there was an additional opportunity to actually split the order at the order level and not at the tote level, because we were already splitting orders. So Thomas, if you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing behind the scenes with Perseus to actually do that optimization.
Definitely. It's nothing. I love nothing more than to talk about cartonization. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, like Andrew said, we met, a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago, and Andrew was very, he understands his business like no one else, and he's an industrial engineer. He understands that there's opportunities, but he also understands like the limitations of existing systems, right? Like a WMS, and they have a great WMS, right? But like cartonization isn't just a thing that's going to be prioritized by a WMS because they have a gazillion other things they have to work on, right? And so then here comes Perseus, which was founded, over 2 years ago to just focus squarely on cartonization, right? Like how do we make sure that we solve that 3D Tetris for every order in real time, quickly and perfectly, right? And with that, comes the first opportunity that we figured out. It's like, okay, if you actually have a big orders coming in, there's games you can play with the carriers, right? Like sometimes putting everything in one big box is cheaper than splitting it into two smaller boxes, right? But sometimes the opposite is true, right? Like we, for example, found with USPS, they give you these different products. They give you a flat rate method, but they give you ground advantage method, right? They give you priority mail method, and like the answer isn't always clear. It's not always this method is better, right? It's like sometimes to certain distances, the flat rate method is better, so to closer distances, maybe New Jersey to Connecticut, it's better to use the priority mail method, right? And that's something that's been, Andrew's employees had some sort of a tribal knowledge about, how to do that. But, some employees had it, some employees didn't. And so here comes Perseus, we can actually encode all of this, and have like a mathematically optimal system, play these games and ship and save on shipping, right? So that was like the phase one of this entire adventure. But then as Andrew said, since you already know how an order is going to be packed, why does it need to be packed at the packing station? Can't it be, picked and packed at the same time, right? And in theory, yes, but for that to happen, you need to have a very, very smooth picking operation, and that's where this whole collaboration with Lucas, injecting that cartonization into Lucas, and then having Lucas's, voice picking robot Jennifer just very precisely direct the picker through the picking process. That has been a complete game changer over at Medusa. Wouldn't you say, Andrew?
Yes, and I think one of the things that we kind of glossed over a little bit was the hands-free execution of Lucas. So imagine trying to pick bottles of vitamins and then also holding an RF in your hand, right? So
Mhm.
we just kind of weren't set up for success. But now, and it's okay, right? You walk, then you run. So and now we're sprinting, right? But I knew the ability to go direct to carton would solve a few problems, right? We could turn orders faster. We could eliminate touches, which cost money. And those two things really are super appealing, especially to our leadership over here at Medusa. We love to be the fastest and the best in the industry, right? Um, so I'll go to the next slide here. I think I skipped one here. All right. So the implementation process was actually, I've been part of quite a few of these over the years, right? So whether it be a WMS or an optimization to an existing WMS or bolting on a new picking system or whatever it might be, as an outside consultant, right? They're pretty painful. We've been lucky throughout this process that Lucas has been and both Perseus, Lucas, and Perseus, we started together on the solution. Yeah, it took a year to kind of figure it out and get it kind of from the time we really engaged and rubber met the road, to when we started picking. It was about a year, but you know I think that that second bullet there, that co-development is just huge, right? You know, Thomas can talk a little bit more about, you know, what happens underneath the covers, but you know, as a customer and as somebody that knows a little bit too much, you know, to be dangerous, but it didn't feel like implementations that have been in the past, right? It felt like we had a real solid partnership with people that were just really smart on both sides, which led me to feel comfortable with like we were making the right decision. So go ahead, Thomas, if you can explain a little bit about.
Yeah, no, this is 100% agree with what you said. There was a couple of things that was very pleasant about this entire process was that there was a lot of in-person work. So like the Lucas team showed up to the warehouse in Medusa in New Jersey. We all showed up for a couple of days and spent, you know, workshopping stuff out, co-developing the solution, but then actually, you know, following the pickers in the warehouse, making sure that the cartonization was successful and that the robot, you know, Jennifer was actually able to interpret the results. And you know, that's always, these things are always better done in person. So like kudos to everyone, like taking the time to be there in person. And then yeah, there's a couple of that co-development piece. Some of the like really cool things that we developed that we didn't even originally scope for, right? But they sort of like, we figured out, well, actually, since we're already building this integration, we might as well like add something extra to it. So on a high level, how it works right now is, you know, an order, you know, the Medusa website captures an order. That order is written to the WMS. In the WMS, for certain reasons, and Andrew can dive deeper into that, but like, you know, they don't do automatic waiving. You know, there's always a person waiting for a certain level of orders to be batched up, and then it gets waived, right? Once it gets waived, it drops into Lucas, right? Now, Lucas needs to know, you know, how to actually you know, what are the boxes these items are going to be picked into, right? And for that, it calls Perseus. You know, for that specific order, there's an API integration. You know, Perseus has like a get endpoint exposed specifically for Lucas. Lucas sends us the orders. We figure out exactly, you know, using the dimensional data of the items, we figure out, okay, these are these are the boxes we're going to use. These are the shipping labels. And, you know, taking into consideration all kinds of constraints, right? Like maybe these items are fragile and these items are heavy, so the fragiles can't be packed with heavy, etc. It's all this tribal knowledge Perseus already has. It figures out the boxes, sends it over to Lucas, and then Lucas guides the packing. Now, simple. It's a pretty simple like triangle between three systems, right? Now, what is really cool, you know, we set out to like eliminate as much of the tribal knowledge as possible with Andrew when we started building this, right? And with Lucas, like a like a thing we realized we could do is that whenever we have a new packing instruction, right, that someone figured out, you know, maybe there's a specific SKU that always gets broken when it gets shipped in a certain box, right? We just figured that out, you know, maybe it's this like glass item that always gets broken in a USPS 12/12/6 box, right? The customer support team figures that out, that's what people complain about all the time. So then now the person in the operations can actually create an SOP that says, okay, whenever this specific glass item gets put into this box, add extra bubble wrap, right? Before, we'd have to go and teach every packer, hey, going forward, make sure to like put bubble wrap for these SKUs. Now, none of that needs to happen because like we can actually write this rule into Perseus and tell Perseus to like send this rule to Jennifer for every order. And then what happens is that the picker, you know, as soon as he starts picking that SKU, Jennifer tells him, hey, add extra bubble wrap to that box for this SKU, right? And it's like you don't have to train anyone. and it's repeated to every picker and every time, and it just like reduces the amount of thinking the pickers have to do, and really just focuses them on just like executing. They have both hands, they're free, they're talking natural language, and this has been, yeah, very, very cool.
And one of the other things that for those of you that are participating that ship batteries, right? The same flexibility that Thomas just mentioned, when we're building our carts to pick, it's telling the picker to put the sticker on the box for whatever proper sticker, right? The UN 3481, 3480, whatever it is, based on the contents of that box, we're instructing them to do that, right? We're not relying on somebody to put that on the box, or the no-fly stickers or hazmat, whatever they might be. So I guess let's take it just a step back. So the old system was, right, we would get the order in, our WMS would do some very rudimentary splitting of the order. Anything that could go, FedEx, UPS, those carriers would go in one tote, and then anything that was like quote unquote controlled that we couldn't ship with UPS, FedEx would go into another tote, right? Then Thomas developed that system. We would split those totes into boxes, optimize them, right? So enter everybody and saying, okay, well, why are we splitting into totes? Let's just do this on the order level, right? So now we're now Thomas tweaked the algorithm to do it on the order level, and then Lucas we found to bolt on to say, okay, now how do we pick it, right? I think we kind of glossed over that a little bit and made it sound a lot simpler than it was. So that's kind of how things work, right? Order comes in, Thomas kind of explained it, but an order comes in, goes into our WMS, everything kind of happens in parallel. Lucas processes the order and then spits it back up to the WMS and says, hey, I got everything, right? Very simple, easy way to think of it. But Thomas is also, Perseus is also instructing us what box sizes to use. And we have at this point like an 85% success rate on the box, meaning it's not too small or it's not too big. There's not a lot of air in the box. There's not enough room in the box, right? So, which is great, and that's something that we monitor, and that's something that we're working on making better over time. So let's go to the next slide. So what does this mean, right? So like cool, this is great, but what's the results, right? So and the results are kind of staggering, and this is kind of getting better as time goes on. But I'll kind of talk to and then I'll let Thomas talk to the some of these points. But so we've seen an increase in productivity even while you're picking and packing the order at the same time, right? Because we used to just pick the order and throw it in a tote or throw it on a cart. We've seen an increase in packing units per hour of 13.6%, right? Which is not nothing. And again, remember, that's also while you're picking and packing the order. So that's, you're now taking the time to actually find the space in the box and put it in there, right? But more importantly, we've actually seen that pickers are getting to additional pick faces within faster, right? To the tune of 15% increase. This is across, we'll show you another slide that kind of shows an even better story, but this is across our entire workforce, right? And from the time we started. So obviously we could do a snapshot of just this month, but I can tell you that we were picking probably, I think the goal was 90 picks per hour. And now we're picking over 130 picks per hour on average. So it's been remarkable, and we're picking and packing the order at the same time. So Thomas, and then the other piece of this whole thing is that the right size box is being selected for the right carrier, right? And there's a savings there as well. So there's a labor savings, which is cool, but the shipping savings is just gravy on top.
And the faster onboarding, right? Like a lot of you don't have to train the picker on like, okay, the battery needs a special sticker, right? They don't have to think about that. Jennifer says, hey, put a sticker on box number 2. Right. And yeah.
And we've seen we've seen a 16% reduction in shipping cost, right? By doing nothing, right? Just having the right box selected, and really, but not by doing anything, but it's invisible to the picker and the packer, right? Thomas's system, Perseus, is doing that for us. So this next slide is kind of what I kind of had alluded to earlier. We took results from RF versus voice pick for people that really are seasoned pickers, right? So 100+ hours of experience. And we're seeing a 20, almost a 21% increase in units per hour on those people, and a 23% almost task per hour increase, right? So it's crazy. I think a large part of the reason for that is because of Thomas had explained a little bit about Jennifer, and Jennifer is the AI bot that talks to everybody while they're picking. And there's a thing that Lucas has called speedometer, and speedometer actually tells the picker what they're doing and how fast they're going, right? And you can ask Jennifer, but we also prompt them that, hey, you're not picking to what you're expected to pick. And I think that's a big part of why we've seen this improvement, because if you don't know how you're doing, it's hard to like go do a better job, right? So the other thing I think is that eliminating the RF from people's hands, like you have to do 5 scans with our old picking system. You have to scan the tote, scan the location, scan the product, scan the scan the cart, whatever, enter a quantity on it, right? So now you're just walking up to a location, using your eyes, your hands are free. There's a lot less eye fatigue, which a lot of my season pickers were explaining that their eyes, they're not as tired at the end of the day. And you're just able to say, hey, grab 5 and move on, right? So that's been a huge bump in our productivity as well, I think. So all while packing the order, right? Gotta keep kind of mentioning that. So what overall, what was the directional operational impact here? Clearly there's a labor savings. We're tracking right now to save. It's a 7-figure number. The ROI is like 3 or 4 months on the project, right? And it wasn't a cheap project. We're turning orders exponentially faster. We've seen like a 13% decrease in cost per unit as well. So, and Thomas, I don't know if you want to talk about the shipping savings. Thomas was monitoring through his software how much shipping spend we're doing.
Yeah, it's so by playing that game, right? So there's so Andrew's company, right? They have, certain types of products that can only be, they have a set of carriers. The carriers have sets of ship methods, and they have products, and there's rules on which products can be shipped with which which carriers. And then when you're relying on tribal knowledge and kind of like human packers figuring out what to do, they generally tend to be conservative. Let's just do something that's safe to make sure we don't break rules and get stuff out the door, right? And but once you start like using math to like play this game, yeah, you get to do stuff like, oh, this order has certain items that can be shipped in a cheaper method, right? And what's the optimal sized box for that? And then maybe sometimes, even if the commercial carrier, you could split, you could ship a subset of the order in that cheaper carrier. It's actually better to just ship everything in a slightly more expensive carrier, but in one big box. And these are decisions that are very nuanced, and like humans are just on average gonna get it 16% more expensive so than mathematically optimal computer. So yeah, and again, like with Jennifer, the picker never has to be trained on this. They're not exposed to like the pricing functions of the carriers. They don't care about that. They just listen to what they do and focus. They have both hands. 16% saving.
And go ahead, Thomas.
Yeah, generally the more complicated your sort of like carrier portfolio is, the more games you can play with cartonization and then save more money.
Which is perfect, because that's a perfect segue, because I also want to note that now we have the flexibility to do single. So if it's a 10 box order, we can send each box its own ship method, right? We're not beholden to the ship method that came down on the order header, right? We can we could actually split that order up and ship some of it, some carrier, some of it another carrier. You might ask, why would you want to do that? But it's because we ship products that aren't, again, that aren't allowed to be shipped with most of the common carriers, right? So as more and more final mile carriers come on in the space that want to be able to ship these products, we're able to turn those guys on really easily. And it's been a huge hack for us. So there is a question from Kristen Bowman around how many SKUs Medusa actually manages. So we have probably over 10,000 SKUs. It depends it fluctuates, monthly, but, and we do, our inventory team does a bang up job on maintaining the item level, details, right? So pack sizes and, weights and dimensions and weights. So we pass all that stuff along to Perseus. So it wasn't really a huge lift for us to do. It was pretty straightforward. And if we didn't have that information, yeah, it would definitely be a mess, right? But if you have tight item master data, you'd be in good shape. So
there's also, I would say that having some master data, even if it's not super precise, because I think, Andrew, you guys had a decent item master, but like there was still some holes in it. But I think what we put in place was once we rolled out the Perseus cartonization algo, you figure out what the mistakes are very quickly, and then you just have some sort of a quick feedback loop between the actual packing station and the inbound people, managing the inventory.
right.
It's like, oh, the packer's like, oh, this long thing, Perseus is telling me to put this long thing into this like short box. Either the box is wrong or the item is wrong. And so then, they generally at Medusa, they like send a Slack message to the inventory guy, and then he updates the dimensions. And like once this runs for a while, like the item master sort of fixes itself out over time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we've talked enough. I think we can pass it on to the panel. So
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew and Thomas. Let's bring John back in as well for this panel discussion portion of our presentation. That was a great presentation, guys. Some fantastic results that you were willing to share with us. That's really appreciative that you're able to give us such specifics. Let me start with this one, Andrew. Thomas did lead us very nicely through the process, but I would just like for you to clarify the point at which the Lucas system interacts with the WMS and how the integration with Perseus actually functions behind the scenes.
Sure, at a high level, right?
Yeah.
So the orders come into our website. They go right into our WMS. We have a very good integration between our WMS and our front end and our back end. At that point, Perseus grabs the order, optimizes it behind the scenes, so that when we're ready to pick the order, it's ready to go, right? So I don't know, Thomas, every few seconds?
2 minutes.
So every 2 minutes, he's looking for a new order.
Every 2 minutes, we optimize whatever new orders came in.
Exactly. So at that point, once we're operationally ready to pick the order, so we maybe it could be the middle of the night, but then that morning we wave the order through our WMS to Lucas, which essentially pushes the order from our system into their system. Now they know about the order. They reach out to Thomas and Perseus to say, how do you want me to box this order up? What size boxes? And then Thomas sends back down a JSON response that breaks out what items go in what boxes, what stickers go on each boxes, how do you want to pack it, what's the ship via of each box. A lot of details that actually through the implementation phase we actually increased, and still to this day we just added more variables that are being passed from Thomas's system to allow for us to bring on more of those local mile carriers. So, and then from there, Lucas sends back to our WMS, what did you get and how did you do it? And then from there, we just were able to, and Lucas does a lot of other things behind the scenes, like creating the shipment and using our WMS's APIs. And then we just pack the order by scanning the label on the box, and then the labels and the pack slips come out, and we go on our merry way.
Great. John, tell us more about how the solution actually approaches batching and optimizes pick paths to ensure efficiency during execution.
Sure. So it starts with a map a digital representation of your warehouse that resides in our system. Then we're going to take a look at what Andrew said. We're getting all of that data, all those orders from the WMS. We want to take as much of that data as possible and make that data smart. So we're going to take a look at those orders, and we're going to have a seed order, and we can see that seed order, where on that map those picks are going to be, and what that travel is going to look like for a particular associate. So if we're able to take that seed order and then look at all the rest of the orders, perhaps through the wave or through the rest of the day, or as much as you let us, the more you can give us, the better we can be. We're going to take that and we're going to look at what travel for a particular order is going to most resemble the seed order, and we're going to batch them together so we can create a better, more efficient cart and unit of work there. We're also going to take in consideration high priority orders. There's a prioritization element to dynamic work optimization. We're also going to consider orders that need to ship out together. But ultimately, we're trying to create as much density with all these rules, as much density as possible for that particular assignment for each picker. Once that's done, we're also, because of that map, we're going to direct travel path and make it as efficient as possible for that assignment for that particular picker. And all of this, it took me, a minute to explain that. It happens dynamically and near instantaneously within a Lucas solution.
Wow. Thomas, talk about some of the advanced cartonization features that are present in the solution, like nesting, stacking, and even squishable items.
Yep. So first of all, like Perseus has all these advanced features. We turn them on based on like how it's more of a question of like, do you have like the item master data ready for this? So like, for example, nestability, right? So that's the, function of, okay, if I have a cup has, certain dimensions, but it also has empty space inside. Maybe if I have like a creamer, a different SKU, that creamer can actually live in that cup, and it's actually easier to, there's certain space savings that you can gain. Now, Perseus can run the game of like, we can try to cartonize next to each other or like within each other. But Perseus, so that feature exists. But what we do need is, okay, is we need to know whether this cup is actually, nestable. But is there an empty space and how much empty space there is, right? Or so with customers that have items that are nestable into each other, we make sure we work with them at the beginning of the deployment to figure out, okay, which are the items with empty space, how much empty space they have, which items can nest into them. Once we have this figured out, then we just turn on the nesting feature, and that's how it goes. The same for like squishability items, right? We know t-shirts, for example, in certain ways they can kind of function like water, right? So for Perseus, Perseus can treat items like water. It just needs to know which items are squishable and which are not. But yeah, we work with customers to make sure we have the master data for that.
Well, it's a level of sophistication that we didn't see in the past. So it's great to have that now. So John, is it actually possible to split large orders across multiple pickers so that they can be picked in parallel?
Yeah, of course. Based on, the orders that come in that we can see, Medusa, Andrew's team, they're going to have some fairly large orders. In this fashion, we can split them apart. We may have multiple seed orders that we can see. They're going to have customers that have similar order profile, but perhaps different quantities. And then we're going to be able to basically take that travel path, the map, use that seed order and the orders that we see, split them apart, put them with the picker that's going to have the same or pretty close resembling travel path, split it apart to multiple pickers, and then we're of course trying to respect the rules around prioritization and what they need, but ultimately in most cases you're going to have those cartons hitting shipping right around the same time.
Yeah, that was a huge one for us, not to jump in here, but that was a huge
Oh,
one.
please do. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a huge one for us, right? Our orders, as you guys know, from what I said earlier, they're big, right? A lot of our orders go out on pallets. So the ability to, get an order at 3, 4 o'clock and split it across 10 pickers and just get it out the door same day. I mean, that's
Mhm.
another level of kind of customer service, right? So that was a big attraction for us to do this.
Yeah. The other side of the equation, we talked about the nestability of certain items, but there are, of course, fragile items that require additional cushioning. And I know you referred to the fact of special instruction on this needs more bubble wrap and the like. Thomas, can you tell us a little bit more about how it accommodates those special packing instructions and, for that matter, how that's communicated to Lucas?
Yes. I touched upon it a little bit before, but I'll expand on it. So there's multiple like sort of dimensions to what a special instruction could be. So it could be like an item level special instruction, like okay, this is a glass item that needs extra bubble wrap, right? So it's specified certain packing instruction based to a one SKU. There could also be, pairwise level instructions like this specific SKU cannot be packed with this other SKU. SKU A and SKU B cannot be packed together, right? And that we can specify too. And then what we also do, and this is again more of like a item master thing that we work with the customer at the beginning of any implementation is like, for Perseus to work, all we need is dimensions and weights, right? Dimensions and weights of items and dimensions and of weights and maximum capacities of boxes, and then we can play 3D Tetris. But if you provide more columns and let's say more what we call tags, like then we can actually set rules not only on specific SKUs, but also on specific tags. So for example, not only you say this specific glass item has, extra bubble wrap, but we can say, we have a data set of all the glass items. All the glass items have a glass tag, and then we can say, okay, any item that has a glass tag will automatically, have this bubble wrap requirement, right? So that sort of gives very like flexibility on how to sort of make sure Perseus treats different items. And so like, whenever you're adding a new SKU, as soon as you give it a tag, it then, inherits a list of these constraints. And so how it's communicated to Lucas, that API between Lucas and Perseus, there's a specific list of instructions that we send for every box, right? So like a specific box might have a few glass items. It might have a battery. It might need like a no-fly label. It might need extra bubble wrap, right? All of these are sent over. And so then the person actually doing the box, Jennifer knows, okay, this box has this list of instructions. Let me read them out to the picker one by one.
Okay. Guys, at this point, I'd like to bring the audience in. We do have some audience questions already posted, and audience members are encouraged to continue to post your questions as we answer what's already come in, and we will get to as many of those as we can, time permitting. Let's start with this one. The question is, how do pickers generally react to the transition from RF scanning or picking on paper to picking via voice? John, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can start off with that one. Look, it's human nature for people to resist change,
Yeah.
but people love it when technology can make their life and their work easier. We have the ability to make them hands-free, eyes-free. What Andrew spoke about was very true. There's a lot of studies today that we're able to reduce the brain fatigue that when people leave a shift, they go home with more in the tank to go home to their families and be able to say, I could take out the trash, I could do this, I could do my honey-do list. That's a very real thing. So they're less fatigued when they leave a shift.
Yeah.
Not to put Andrew on the spot, but I'll speak to a number of our customers. Many of them, because they now have this rich data in the management console, they put people on paid incentives. And now that they have that data and they're hands-free, eyes-free, it starts to kind of build, and people are getting paid some incentives because of the technology. So they love that. But Andrew, your team, you have the unique experience of implementing this recently. How did they take to the hands-free, eyes-free part of Lucas?
Initially, I think there was a few complaints about the headset hurting their heads, right? And after that, I didn't hear much of anything at all. But
Mhm.
I knew when I talked to some of the more seasoned vets, that they were thrilled with it because, like I said, that I think one told me that they don't have headaches anymore. They didn't realize maybe that the headaches were caused by all of the visual fatigue, right? Um, so and we also are doing this in multiple languages, right? So we have Spanish deployed as well. And we don't have a huge Spanish workforce, but we have enough people who are using it in Spanish, and they're enjoying it that way too. They were trained in English, but now they're using it in Spanish. So I just think, I think I'm gonna just say, like, as a guy in the engineering space, is voice picking the sexiest thing on the planet? Absolutely not, right? Is ASRS and all these robotic things that are happening? It's so awesome, right? To see these stuff. You go to ProMat, you see all these things, right? They're so great, but they're also like gazillions of dollars, right? So we got everything we needed. Also, our order profile doesn't lend itself to picking in an automated system, right? So I think we're always going to have humans picking. That's great. We like to support our local economy and do all those things, right? But voice picking and it wasn't something that I thought when I came to Medusa was the first thing. I had thoughts of put to light and pick to light and all these other things, right? And here we are, 8 years in that I've launched voice picking, and it's been a huge success. Huge success.
Well, yeah. Well, the stages of any technological adoption starts with we don't need that, and then concludes with how did we ever get by without it?
Exactly.
So it does take a certain amount of human adjustment. The question says, what kind of picking and general labor metrics does the Lucas system capture, and how are they used by the warehouse? John?
Sure, and maybe Andrew could speak to this as well too. But essentially, short of requiring engineered labor standards, we're going to have almost everything you need from a labor management system standpoint. You're going to have see all productivity by work type. You're going to see it against goals that you set for each picker and or each team. You're going to see lines per hour, units or cases per hour, whatever you want to see. You can see it in there. We could break it down in any fashion that you want, and we could do that. Lucas just doesn't do picking, replenishment, put away, cycle counting, like receiving, loading. There's all the things that we can do. You're going to see all of that in the management console. We do all this heavy lifting behind the scenes, like Andrew spoke about. The voice is how we integrate with the human being. Behind the scenes, we're using our software to just make things much more efficient, and being able to tag in with Thomas is a huge bonus, because what he's doing is really, really awesome. But at the end of the day, you're going to see all of this rich data on the Lucas management system.
And we are, and we look at it every day. We look at it every morning for the previous day. We're seeing who's performing, who's not. We've moved people out of the function. Having experience working in an LM in the past, the labor management tool in the past, like, setting those things up is miserable. You need to have an industrial engineering degree just to understand how to use the tool. I would say that what we're doing with Lucas and the management console is pretty much damn near right what you would get out of an LM. You're gonna know what the average person's doing for that job function, and then you can compare your peers to it. So to me, it almost feels like it's better, right? A time study is one thing, but what is actually happening in the field is completely different. And I think it's a better measure of what's going on. But yeah, it's this is only the beginning too. We actually are planning on rolling this out to receiving, cycle counting, put away. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it feels a little less intrusive than the old style LLMs, the labor management measurements.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Question here, since orders are picked directly to carton, is there any need for packers? Thomas?
It's a really good question. And the answer is, as always, it depends. So like Andrew said earlier in the presentation, right now at Medusa, we're at around 80% of boxes are like ready to go as they are. So like they're picked into an optimally sized box, and the packer essentially just like scans the box ID in, and labels come out. The packing slip comes in, the label comes out, right? For that 20% that are, let's say, off, and they could be off for many reasons, wrong, we hit a problem with item master data, right? Like a new SKU came in and we don't have the dimensions, or like the same SKU, but like the vendor changed the dimensions. And so item master data inconsistencies can make it wrong. Sometimes it's just we have a super long item that doesn't fit into any box, right? And so that sort of like throws an error. So there's all these like, especially in like Medusa's case, right? 10,000 over 10,000 specific SKUs, and very, very, large and sometimes strange, order profiles. There's always going to be exceptions, and you want to have some sort of a hospital process and like a human to like figure it out, right? But for the standardized, for the 80%, like we're very close, and I'm curious kind of what you, Andrew, think about this. Is like, yeah, for those 80% that are like perfectly boxed in, like the whole like some sort of a automated, you close the box and you slam the label on it. Like I think that could be a valid way forward.
No,
No?
that's in our roadmap, right? So our roadmap now is to increase the automation after the pick. So boxes are actually going to wind up on the MDR conveyor, and then wind up going through. Just a human, I think, is always going to just inspect it at the end of the day, but pushing it through an automated case sealer, and then a print and apply applies the labels that are applicable, and it's on its way. So yeah, that's my goal here, right? Yes, it's a reduction in labor, but that's just part of the process here. So
Okay. We're getting a little tight on time, but I do want to squeeze in this one question here. It's kind of a yes or no question. And I guess it goes to Tomas. Does the cartonization engine factor in total shipping cost when determining the optimal packing configuration?
Yes, 100%. It's an optional feature, right? If you just provide dimensions, we solve 3D Tetris and we minimize volume of boxes. But if you give us connections to your carrier accounts, we pull in the rates, and then we can play 3D Tetris with respect to how much you get actually charged for shipping. And sometimes you get weird answers. Sometimes 2 boxes is cheaper than 1 box, and that's it is what it is. But Perseus is smart enough to figure that out and make sure you ship the cheapest way.
All right. Well, listen, this has been a great discussion with some very demonstrable results. I really appreciate all of you presenting this, but unfortunately, we are just about out of time. We have time for one final question, which I'm going to direct to each of you in turn. So here it is. For any warehouse looking to cut costs in 2025 and beyond, what is the #1 unique thing this combo system brings to the table? Start with you, John.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Yeah. So the dynamic warehouse, from a Lucas perspective, is a very flexible, adaptable framework. And I like to use the word framework because the strength of this particular solution is that it incorporates the best of what we can do, the best of what Thomas can do, and honestly, the best of what Andrew brought to the table, as an industrial engineer at heart. It's the best in class of all the solutions within this type of warehouse operation. So it's really how it all came together as a combination solution and how easy it was to plug and play with everything together.
What's the Medusa perspective, Andrew?
John stole half of what I was going to say, but
Oh.
yeah, obviously, look, if we're looking to cut costs, we got to reduce touches. So how do we do that? We pick direct to carton. And how do we do that? We got 2 of the best players in the game, got them together in a room, bashed heads, and in turn, we've also got a lot of benefits that we didn't see coming, right? So order processing going, through the roof, the speed going through the roof, right? So I set out to reduce labor, and as a byproduct, we got all these additional things: the reduction in tribal knowledge and scalability and all these other things. So I would say, reduction in touches.
What a great success story there. Thomas, last word to you.
I think this unique cartonization to voice picking combo is very efficient at taking any pick, pack, ship operation from picking to tote and then sorting a tote to picking directly to carton, which can reduce up to 50% of touches, which then unleashes ridiculous savings. Yeah, if you're a warehouse and your operation sounds like anything similar to like what Andrew has going on at Medusa, like I'd encourage you to like learn more about the solution, download Lucas's white paper, check out the case study, or just DM me or Andrew on LinkedIn. Like we love nothing more than to talk about this all day, every day.
Clearly.
Come visit.
All right, great. Well, John Vecchio, Andrew Hayner, and Thomas David Yee, thank you so much for that fantastic presentation. Audience, also, thank you very much for your participation and your excellent questions. Really appreciate that as well. We have an asset for you here. We have a white paper, The Transformational Promise of the Dynamic Warehouse from Lucas. There's a QR code you can take a shot of if you have time right now, but if you don't, this will be sent to all attendees of this webinar at the very end, which unfortunately is right now. Thanks again, everybody. Have a fantastic day.